And welcome back to the Constitutionals podcast. I'm your host, Chad White, and this is the premier podcast for the website, cpluscomedy.com. Like I just said, it's a website. Go there. I realized that if you're a listener to this show, and I hope you are at this point, I realized that I'm recording on my phone. I'm shooting at work in the middle of the workday right now. Recording on the phone, and I should. Here comes a guy. He's going to see me talking to myself. I should have flipped the camera around to make it on top. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Let's get on with whatever we're doing this week. There's no news, and that's a bad thing. The guy's about to pass. He's not looking at me. I'm looking at him. If you pass me, I gotta make eye contact, buddy. Good thing I roll the windows down. Bad thing though, because it's hot as balls. It's so hot out here. I had an entire week to shoot news time, and I didn't do it. It is my fault. Except for one night, I was super busy. But also, I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do. I'm watching somebody. This is a one-way entrance that's about, I would say, 7 clicks away from me. Oh no! And somebody just couldn't get into one of the gates, and they turned around. And I don't know how they're going to go down that street because it's an entrance that you can only turn into. So they're probably breaking the law right now. Any hoosers, and I just didn't do news time, which always pushes back the Constitutionals. So here we are. This is episode 170, and the first time I actually remembered it, got it right. And there's no news this week because this is a time of the year when nothing really happens, and if it is news, is just like small things like a show was renewed or a show was picked up or like a movie got a distributor or something. Nothing I could really grasp on and talk about. As you know, I'm merely 50 feet, 50 clicks, so many clicks. That's what the sequel should be for Adam Sandler's Click. This is not the first time I brought this up today. To myself, obviously, of course. I mentioned the movie Click this morning, thinking that if I could just fast forward to, I'm about to move, and I could just fast forward a couple of weeks and not have to pack anything, and just like have that version of me do everything. Anyway, I'm like 50 feet away from where I dubbed this podcast entertainment entertainment, business news podcast, something like that. So that's a little fun fact. That's where I am right now, in the recording this show. Hey, let's get on with it. Also, did not put up that Kyle Conan interview, like I said I was going to. It's been a really long week, guys. So many breakthroughs, though. All right, so I thought that I have a bunch of ideas in reserve, and so I thought that a good one, I'd pull one of them out. And it's a good time of the year to do this because, like I said, there's no news, and news shows or movies and everything is kind of slowing down. But we've got a late night report card. That's what we're going to call this episode. Late night report card. I had this idea it was definitely in 2019, but maybe even last year around this time. And it is an idea where I think that every so often I'll sit down, and sometimes I'll watch, a bunch of late night, like over the course of like a couple of weeks. If everybody's on and I just want to check up on the people I don't usually watch, then I'll come in. And I won't say who it is, but I mostly watch Conan, Seth, Jason Samiro, and Samantha Bee. I like to keep tabs on them because I think it's late night is a very good funnel for comedy and for talking to people. And so I want to get into this late night shows. I was looking up what shows I was going to cover, and I knew which ones I was going to cover, but I didn't know which ones are considered late night shows and which ones weren't. And pretty much they're, oh, Jiminy Christmas, guys. Come on. Late night talk show. There's a you know which ones are which, and obviously, but maybe I should point my mouth towards the microphone. Also, I have no idea how this sounds. I had to turn off the car because the wind, the air conditioning was just so freaking loud. Okay, well, we have an issue. Anyway, the late night shows that were considered late night shows, alongside the Late Show or the Late Show or Late Night with Seth, all of them were like Katie Nolan's Always Late on ESPN, Real Time with Bill Maher. I wasn't sure if I was going to mention that or not because I took it off the list, even though I did watch a couple of. Just got an email from Nintendo. Big news. Even though I did watch a couple of clips of the recent episodes he's done from home, and then more or less some other shows. Maybe I point the microphone right here so that I'm looking at the camera instead of having to force my way over there. Okay. So the shows I'll be looking at that are currently on, that are late night, that aren't like that are consistently on and more or less consistently on, include and just a bunch of other little parameters that I think matter for it to be dubbed one of the A-list late night shows. They are Late Show with Stephen Colbert, The Late Late Show with James Corden, Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, Late Night with Seth Meyers, A Little Late with Lily Singh, Conan, Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, Desus and Mero, and Patriot Act with Hassan Minaj. And so those are the shows I'm looking at. I think that's 11 shows, something like that. And there are some caveats here and there. And the reason I didn't include Real Time with Bill Maher is because I just don't like it. No, I think that show. This one's tough because it comes on Friday, but that really shouldn't matter. But if Busy Phillips' show was still on E, I would definitely consider it part of the late night camp, even though that came on Sunday through Wednesday. But I think Real Time with Bill Maher is more of a chat show than it is a late night program. So it's more, I hate to compare it to Oprah's show, but it's more Oprah. Speaking of which, I think Oprah, I was watching clips of Bernie Mac on Oprah. I went through a whole Bernie Mac bender for reasons unknown. But I was watching clips of Bernie Mac and Oprah, and then I watched a bunch of other Oprah clips that are on Oprah's YouTube page. I think that if Oprah struck a deal with Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, any streaming service, to have her old episodes, her old catalog streaming, it would make gangbusters. Like, she would make more money than she has right now. She has a lot of money. I think that would be a very lucrative deal for any one of the streaming services to snatch up. And I guarantee that she owns the rights. It's like an artist, a musician that owns the masters to their music. And so they, like, who is it? Tom Petty, who doesn't want the Trump administration to play his music. Won't Back Down. Is that Won't Back Down? And Won't Back Down. He won't allow Won't Back Down to be played at the rallies. Yeah, Tom Petty. So yeah, I think that'd be great. I was thinking about this earlier this week. I just wanted to float that idea out there. So go ahead, Oprah. You can have that idea. You're welcome. I would like at least 3%, though. Spit a little bit when I said that. All right, so let's get on. So this is not meant to judge people or anything. I watch pretty much all of these shows except for one of them, and I will not say which one, because I do like the host. I just think that this person needs to tighten it up. Oh yeah, Colbert and Corden are going back to not to their studios, but they're going back to studios. Just like Conan went to Largo, so it'll be interesting to see where they go. I think they're coming back next week. We'll see what happens. So here we go. I'll start with Stephen Colbert. Stephen Colbert's show has, I would say, only... So let's do this in a couple of ways. We'll tighten it up next time. But I think Colbert's show has gotten let's say, during the pandemic. So pre-pandemic, it was typical show. I do think it was a little, and I used to have this whole thing about not about audiences clapping too much, and I still think it's way too much, especially on late night. But I was watching old Carson clips because Carson is on Peacock right now. Some episodes are on Peacock, and so I was watching some episodes of Carson, and the audiences there still clap a little bit too much for me. It's worse when it's like Married with Children. Watch the later seasons of Married with Children, and Jesus, it's just insane. The audiences. It never got that bad on Friends or Cheers or Big Bang Theory. It never got that bad. So anyway, pre-pandemic, a lot of clapping, and he was playing to the audience a lot, which is obviously what a host should do. But it was. I want to go back, use the word obvious. It was a little bit obvious, but Colbert, I think, transitioned really well to doing this from home. I think his earlier episode, the first one he shot was in a bathtub. That was really good. And then he was out in his backyard. He did a really good job there. And then it kind of got honed in where there's a point where during the pandemic when late night shows either get the cameras they need or they don't. There's no in between. No one stopped. And we'll talk about that a lot when we get to Seth Meyers. But Colbert, I think he's thriving. A lot of these hosts are thriving outside of the studios without the audience, clapping every other sentence because they heard something that they liked. What is this? Like, why applause breaks? I don't understand it. Like, they clap because they like something, and I know it's not just the audience saying, choosing to do this on their own, but a lot of it starts like that. I know it could be a producer pressing the applause sign button, but it's too much. We need to stop it. We don't need to pad it. The show is already 42 minutes long. You cut some of the clapping out, it'll be 35 minutes. That's enough for another bit or a sketch or a segment. Come on. And so Colbert is doing well. I wish they would find some way to have more John Baptiste in it. He's a sidekick, technically a sidekick, so he needs to be a little bit more involved in that. But it's hard right now to have the sidekicks in. I don't think anyone, I'm looking down, I don't think anyone really has sidekicks really being involved. Fallon only gets the rapport, not post-pandemic, but mid-pandemic, but post doing it from home. He's going back. So anyway, let's continue. I'll talk about him later. But yeah, Colbert's doing a great job. His interviews are great. The episodes look good. And so when he goes back to the studio, I assume next week, then we'll see what happens with that. Corden was a different story, not too different, but noticeable. He didn't come back as soon as, Conan, Fallon, Seth, and even Samantha, Dacis, and Meyers, like he did not come back as quickly as the others. I would, knowing that I don't want to say doesn't like doing the show, but knowing that the show tires him out, because I think before he signed his extension with CBS a couple of years ago, he said he'd be okay with not doing the show, something like that. Don't quote me on that, but he said something along those lines, and I get it because a nightly show, hour-long show, and you've got to have like that same type of energy every single night and telling the same type of jokes every single night for years on end. Like, Jesus, like I get it, even though I want to do it. I would definitely love to do that. But he came back shooting from his garage, and I think he thrives in front, as much as I hate to thrive. As much as I hate to say that the audience helps him, the audience really does help Corden in his program, with an E because he's British. I think James does play to the audience. Every single host here plays the audience well, but he does it in such a way that he's with them on everything. Like with Colbert, for instance, he's or John Oliver, he's trying to teach you something. Colbert, he's leading you through something. Conan's, making you laugh through everything. But Corden, he is in the audience. He's also an enjoyer of whatever's going on. So that's why carpool karaoke or spill your guts, any one of those segments. That's why those play so well. I mean, that's B. A, because they get these super famous people to sit down and do those things. But then B, it plays so well because he is along for the ride with the audience. Or the intersection things, the things with the intersection musicals. Like, those are... I don't watch a lot of Corden, but I know everything about that. So crazy. So he has Reggie Watts and the late show band, whatever they're called. And they're on TV screens off to his side doing, that stuff. But there's just I watched a couple of clips where the Muppets made an appearance, I think his last week. And also this is the same problem I have with Desus and Mero. Both of these shows, more Desus and Mero that does this, but the shows went on hiatus, and then for so long. Like last year, Desus and Mero went on hiatus for 3 months before the fall started again, and that was crazy. But Corden left the studio, went on hiatus, and then that was 6 months. It wasn't that long, but it was a very long time. But I watched the Muppet clips and it just seemed like obviously he's acting and they're trying to get to a specific point so the Muppets can sing a song. But I saw the through line, I saw the thread, and it just didn't work for me. And that's what a lot of Corden does. But all in all, I think he's doing a great job. I think he did a great job. We'll see what happens when he goes back to the studio. Next up, Fallon, who is proto Corden, and he was the one who started doing the shows again, and it was great. Oh, Kimmel! I didn't have Kimmel on here. That's who I'm missing. I knew I was missing somebody. Kimmel should have been first. You know why? Because he's not on right now, and he has all these guest hosts. I'll put Kimmel after Lily Singh. Wow, Kimmel. Okay, that's who I was thinking about. I knew I was missing a James or a Jimmy. Fallon's a very his show came back, and then he got caught up with some controversy because of an old blackface sketch. But people are just pulling things out of their ass right now to cancel people. And I think his home shows were good. There's a lot of he and Conan and sometimes Seth have fallen into this. They don't have as good of technology as they should have for as we can give them, as the human technology driven race can give them. And in that they're all still doing these interviews over web Zoom stuff, and obviously you have to, but there's only so Fallon's interviews when he was still at his I assume vacation home in New York State. It was so tough to watch those interviews because there's always the Zoom lag, someone's telling a story, then they end it, and then you're waiting 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, that's funny, stuff like that. And I'm glad we're kind of done with that. I'm glad we're trying to push for better ways to do the shows from home or from studio with a limited audience. So I think that's the only place where Fallon falters. But he did just do a send up of the Trump Axios interview from a couple of days ago, and I thought that was a really well done sketch during his monologue. So take that as you will. Fallon's doing a good job too. Late Night with Seth Meyers, probably doing the best job out of everybody. His team has managed to do the closer look segments. Really, what else? The one with Amber Ruffin and the other writer who's a lesbian. They managed to do those. Or Seth can't tell. That's what it's called. What else? Amber says what? They've done that. Really, really good job. Oh, also, I want to mention about what each one of these people have done for the protests and everything. I think Fallon and Colbert have done an exceptional job, especially Colbert. Same thing for the others when I get down to them, but they've all done really good jobs of covering things that are super serious and talking about it. Let's see what else Seth. But these interviews over Zoom, presumably Zoom, are just not as good as they should be, and it's tough. And interviews, panel segments are 2/3 of an episode of late night shows. So we got to figure out how to do this a better way. I think Kimmel works with Cisco Web Index, and I looked them up a couple weeks ago to get an understanding. Like for the first time in he's been on for 11 years, something like that, 15, 11 years, 15, 11. He's been on for that long, and I've just been thinking why does everybody else do Cisco Web Index? That's the best one. And then I saw, I don't remember where I saw some other shows that weren't late night. I think they may be news oriented shows have done Cisco Web Index, and they look really, really good. Or you know what? Stop shooting shows on iPhones. Get a webcam, get a 1080p webcam. That's up to broadcasting standards. Seth Meyers, exceptional work with. I should not do that. That's a racist symbol, I believe. Or it's a symbol that was adopted by the white Proud Boys. Okay, Seth Meyers, good job. Number 1, Little Late with Lily Singh. She's been off since the pandemic began, but I realized this a couple of months ago when they were still airing new episodes and there were no late nights. This is maybe late March, early April, right before Conan came back and Fallon came back. There were no late night shows on, with the exception of Lily Singh, and they were airing 4 to 5 nights a week, something like that, in the 1 a.m. slot. And I thought, how is this possible? How are they still shooting shows with audiences and all that stuff? And then I realized there's a squirrel slowly making his way to the car. And I realized, oh my gosh, they bulk shot this entire season of the show. And so the remainder of the season, until May, they had 30 more episodes. So I think they shot, 100 episodes. I don't know. I don't say 100. But I think they shot dozens and dozens of episodes over the course of, 3 weeks or so, because, sometimes the guest would be relevant, sometimes it wouldn't be, and it's only a half-hour show. But even still, they had bits and jokes, and this is the same thing that TBS did with Pete Holmes' show, where it was treated as a late night show, but they bulk shot everything, and so monologues weren't really relevant, and guests weren't really relevant. And then they aired it over the course of every day for 5 days a week for 3 months straight. So that's the same approach that was taken there, and it bothered me so much because I kept wondering, why does she have new episodes? Why does she have new episodes? No one else is back. And I saw that. I think there's a lot to improve on in this show. I think it feels like, and I said it when I watched the first episode, it feels like, and as much as I want to write in late night, I still have a lot to learn, or write, period. It feels like this show was written by a bunch of, 20-somethings, and there's one person who's worked on late night, period. And everybody else is I wrote a bunch of YouTube sketches, and that's the bulk of it. They didn't do any news writing or anything like that, and the sketches just aren't that funny. And I hate to say that out loud, but there's a lot of potential here to be on NBC and a woman in a late night space. Also, she thinks she's the only woman in late night. Sam Bee has been around forever. Joan Rivers did it. Michelle Wolf did it. And I know, one of them is dead and one of them had her show canceled by Netflix, but it's still, you're never the only woman in late night, and just keep that in mind. But you know what? I think they need to, first time ever, I'm saying this, get an older group of writers. Or, have someone double check the jokes. Say, dude, does this really make us laugh? But again, they're shooting in bulk, so maybe they're writing in bulk and they're just taking whatever they can get. What I'm saying is, hire me, and I'll make the jokes funny. Also, I think her sidekick's a DJ, and get that out of there. We don't need that. This is late night. Kimmel's doing a great job. His show was shot from his house before he went on a little break, and he gave a show to the guest host. Really good job. Like I said, Cisco Web Index. Cisco's cameras are just insane, and the latency and everything is good. What happens is, for some of these shows, like Kimmel's and I think some others, if you don't have the equipment, they'll send it to you, and so it can look good. And then, I assume they overnight it or something. And then, you send it back. So I think every show should do that. Every network should give their shows the budget to do that. I think that's great. Or get somebody out there to shoot it with you. Get it, I know when Gayle King is doing CBS This Morning from, her home or something, they have a photographer, a camera guy, go out there and set up the cameras and shoot with her. I think they should. ESPN thing just came through, so hopefully that was loud enough. I'll just mute the iPad. I'm so sorry, I should not have done that. But maybe send a photog, a network photog out there to help with. Kimmel's monologues are some of the best out there. One of the best out there. And his interviews are still really good. I think he's doing a great job. I can't wait to see what happens when he comes back. Although his episodes have been only half hour long. So speaking of half hour, going to Conan. Conan's show was one of the first that came back, and obviously he was going crazy, so we definitely see him coming back. And this move to Largo for now, Largo Coronet Theater in Los Angeles is really good because he needs a place to thrive, and now they can shoot with cameras and stuff. And sometimes Andy's there, sometimes Sonam Sebastian is there as an assistant, and it's great. Sometimes there are, I don't know, has there been a sketch in a minute? I don't remember. But his interviews are still good. Again, over Zoom, the latency is an issue, but Conan's doing it to it. Conan's doing it to it. So I'm enjoying that. Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. She's shooting with her husband, Jason Jones, up in New York's suburbs, one of those suburbs up there. I think it's a very good translation of the show to the new quarantine format. They're shooting in the woods behind their home, and it's great. They have a green screen out there, so they can do all the stuff that they need to do. And so Samantha Bee's show is different from others, just like John Oliver's is different, because what she does is they have like the first Act 1 is like a long form story, Act 2 is a long form story, and then Act 3 is usually a pre-tape story. And so and they send one of their correspondents to do the stories, and it's great. It's still like they can do that show without an audience no matter what. So yeah, I really like Full Frontal with Samantha Bee, and Conan. She and Conan, both of their shows have been just major players when it comes to late night Black Lives Matter and just coverage of all that stuff. Also, I want to say Late Night with Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon have been major players when it comes to getting organizations like City Harvest and World's Kitchen, getting them money for food and stuff for people around the world. So during the pandemic, and every single episode on Seth Meyers, he mentions it after the monologue or closer look segment, and yeah, they're doing a great job. Samantha Bee is doing good. Daily Show and Trevor Noah was expanded. This is mid-pandemic. The show has been expanded to 40 minutes, something like that. and then I guess it takes up the whole hour on the cable lineup, but it's been expanded to 40 minutes. The Daily Show team now has a chance to breathe. I think 30 minutes has been too short for Trevor Noah's show. They would always put the extended interviews on YouTube, or on ComedyCentral.com. But I do think that the show is so much better because they now don't have to, I don't want to say fit so many jokes in, but it's a better show because it's there's, again, a chance to breathe, a chance to let the show be the show in a 40-minute format. Speaking of things with 40 minutes this episode. And yeah, so Trevor Noah, kudos to you and your team. The correspondents are getting in there a lot too. And his interviews, he does like double interviews, which is great. Now you can talk to somebody who's pimping something, a movie or a show, and then you can also talk to an activist or a mayor or somebody in some type of government, which is good. So Daily Show, Trevor Noah, Comedy Central is doing something right. They keep canceling shows left and right. They don't know what they're doing over there at Viacom's Comedy Central, Viacom CBS's Comedy Central. But Daily Show, they're doing that really well. Also, Trevor Noah has been very instrumental about organizations, City Harvest and the rest. So that's good for Trevor Noah and his team. Last week tonight with John Oliver, I think this show is so much better, so much better without an audience. Maybe I can stand watching, Colbert's audience because they clap, 15 times out of 20 times. But man, 20 times out of 20, John Oliver's audience will clap for every single joke. And it is so annoying. But this guy, without an audience, everything comes across so much better. They don't have to do, and also they're not relying on these giant stunts anymore that are annoying. And so, yeah, the show now has a chance to go beyond what it was. And it's now, instead of being a news magazine show, now it's kind of like, now it has blossomed into this late night show. The reason why I didn't keep Bill Maher is because there is, like I said, more panel. Whereas John Oliver, even though they both cover the same news things, I think John Oliver is a better representation for HBO in late night. Whereas, I would consider Bill Maher not daytime talk show, but like late night talk show, late night chat show, panel show, whatever. So last week's night, so much better without an audience. Also, I did a writer's packet for them, and it did not go well because you're doing a writer's packet. You got to write in the host's voice, and I didn't have a good grasp of that. But I attempted it, and I got the email back that I didn't get the job, but it's still fine. It's good that I attempted. Daces and Miro, very good show. It's these two guys who do not fit in late night. I'm going to say it right now. They don't fit in late night whatsoever, but they're so funny. It's just two guys from a neighborhood. Put them in a house and get them together. And put them in a house. Put them in a show, get them together, and they're both very funny. Daces does take charge a lot. It's not a knock on Miro, but I had a friend point that out to me, and now I can't not see it. That he's the one really taking charge on everything. I do think that I wrote down. Oh, so this is how early. I had this idea for a long time ago. This late night report card thing, but I think early on, Daces and Miro, the writers would give them sketches to do, and those sketches just not funny, not good, way too long, or they're 3 minutes and they feel like forever. Those guys aren't sketch guys. They're more off the cuff, in the moment guys. And I wish there was a better way to describe them, but that's what they are. They're not guys you sit down and say, here's a script, this is going to be great. Like, I remember, I think the first episode had that Green Book sketch, or one of the first episodes, and it just wasn't good. The last sketch they had was like Beethoven doing an Instagram live with Mozart. I can see the attempt. It's a funny idea. It just didn't pan out with them. And, I mean, there's different types of comedians out there. And those guys are comedians, and they're not like your YouTube people. I read an article in New York Times today that talked about all of the parties going on in Los Angeles and how creators are going to keep throwing them. And in the article, the lovely, my beautiful bride, Taylor Lorenz, described one of the guys there as a comedian, and I just thought, no, it's like God, what is it? The NBA All-Star Weekend, when that famous Los person, when he's playing the All-Star game, the celebrity All-Star game, his chyron always says comedian, YouTuber, and comedian, and that's just those words aren't synonymous. It's an oxymoron. Anyway, back to Desus and Mero. Don't do the sketches. Just let them talk about whatever news or movie trailers or music or even a meme or two. Also, keep that internet stuff off of TV. This is in general. Don't do memes. Don't do memes for anybody. This is for every single one of these late night shows. Don't do memes. All right? Don't do memes. Don't do it. I lose respect when I see CBS This Morning or Good Morning America or the Today Show talk about, well, this is a viral video. It's got 600,000 views. It's a cat sneezing on a baby. I lose that, and I don't know if that's a meme or not, but don't do it. Don't show it unless you're making fun of somebody. Like if it's a I don't know. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Don't bring things up from the internet. I don't know how you do this. I don't know how you do this if you can't do it from the internet. But let's see. Yeah. So yeah, they don't do a lot of sketches. I think the writers know that, but they still keep attempting to try. Because at the time I wrote this, I wrote down Green Book sketch was the only one, because soon after they did not do sketches, and then they've had maybe 2 since then, including that Beethoven Mozart one on Instagram Live doing the DJing a set or something. So definitely avoid that, please. But still, so funny. There, and then even over Zoom, even though there's still that Zoom lag, their interview style, like just telling jokes and just crapping on people, just, oh my gosh, it's so great. I don't like it when they talk about Taylor Swift, but otherwise it's so great. I like them so much. And finally, Patriot Act with Hassan Minaj. This show's been off for a little bit. They come back for bouts of like 8 episodes, but I think I read an interview or something like that along those lines where Hassan Minaj said that during the pandemic, to shoot those episodes, they had his producer was living with him or something like that. I don't know. Living with him and his wife. Very interesting way to do it. But another show that benefits without having the audience there. Truly. Maybe I just hate audiences. I just hate big claps so much. But yeah, just another show that, and mind you, I only watched 1 episode from this latest batch of 8, and now he's been off for a couple of weeks. But I think the show is that much better for not stopping every couple of seconds to acknowledge that there's clapping going on, but the graphics are still really good, and that's where that show really shines and flourishes, because the graphics department does such a great job with the green screen work compared to everyone else. So Hassan Minaj's show, I see, and here's the problem. I can talk about the content of everyone else's show, most everyone else's show, but Patriot Act is a little bit more challenging, because whereas Last Week Tonight perfected the late night, God, I know I said it wasn't a news magazine, but the late night news magazine long form story, Patriot Act does it, but it does it in a way that, you know what? It's like a mix of A Little Late with Lily Singh and Last Week Tonight. And yes, I understand Lily and Hassan are both are both brown people, and I'm sorry to compare them both like that, but I just pressed a button and I don't know what it does. 12-volt battery reset. I hope that didn't make my car explode or anything. But it does kind of feel like that. It feels like it's written by 20-somethings, but now instead of copying, Conan and Letterman and stuff, they also want to they're now copying Oliver, which, I mean, I'm not, obviously, every other show is doing the same thing every other show is doing, with the exception of Sam Bee, Trevor Noah, and John Oliver, and Jason Samaro, but there's a way to do it, and there's a way to not do it, and we got to stop doing references just for the sake of references. I also did another writer's packet where that was one of the rules. I've never been able to put that into words. References for the sake of references aren't good for comedy, for anything. I was listening to Andy Richter's podcast, 3 Questions, and his guest was Demi Adejuyigbe, who's also written for James Corden and the first season of The Good Place, and he's done some other odds and ends and things, and they started talking about Stranger Things and how that's references for the sake of references, and it just saying hey, this is the 80s, remember the 80s? That just doesn't work. And to get back to Hasan Minhaj's show Patriot Act, that's what that show does a lot. It does a lot of, you remember DVDs. Things that were so, yes, I remember those. So I think we can just tighten it up a little bit better. It's, Lily Singh, Hasan Minhaj, Corden. Just tighten it up, even because we have to do these things. Whoa. Well. Oh boy. So yeah. Any Hoosers, look. If you like the Late Night Report card, it'll come back at some point. But for now, if you like what you heard here, head to the website, cpluscomedy.com. It is so hot in this car. Where you can find interviews with your favorite comedians. And hopefully I'll have that Kyle Kinane up one soon. If you want to see a video version of this show, head on over to youtube.com/cpluscomedy to see me sitting in the car sweating my butt off. You can also see our premiere show, News Time, which is a news magazine show. I guess, for the internet. And it's all right. This week's episode is about Taylor Swift's folklore. It's very late, but by the time you listen to this, it's probably up. It is up. Taylor Swift's folklore, and I do an Anthony Fantano parody, The Needle Drop, one of his review parodies, up at the top of the episode. Talk about how folklore breaks records and stuff, and how Taylor's good at genre bending and switching and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's it. If you want to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, at @CPlusComedy. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, @ChadBlackWhite. Like us on Facebook. Rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. Oh snap, I gotta bring up the outro. Goodbye.